Chris here, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's reading vlog. So it is week 2 of the final book support group, and I still have plenty of sequels to read, even though I think I had a really good first week. It is actually now Monday evening, so I've made some progress since the end of the last vlog, so I thought I would give you an update. First, I've started the 8th book in the Pendragon series. I am on page 183, and so far, none of this is familiar whatsoever, so I definitely feel like I might be reading a book I haven't read before, which means this is where I left off in this series. Already, we've had some crazy things happen and some twists and turns I wasn't expecting, which, if it's a reread, I don't remember any of the details. I really don't. I'm not saying it's not possible I've read it, because there could just be one detail that I do remember and it pops up later in the book and I go, oh yeah, well I must have read this book because I remember that. But either way, I am enjoying this book. I absolutely love getting to see the different worlds that Bobby travels to and all of the interesting characters he meets along the way, and this book is no exception. The entire series has been full of that. I am very curious to see how Bobby manages the situation he's found himself in, because he's in quite the sticky situation, and I'm not sure how he's going to get out of it, but honestly, that's common for a lot of these books. I'm still really enjoying this, and I will hopefully be able to get through the rest of it relatively quickly, because this is an easy book to read. I know the world at this point, so even though we're traveling to new worlds, but I know the characters, I know the story, so I can actually listen to this on audiobook while I'm doing other things, which is kind of nice because I've been struggling with that lately. So this is one I'm enjoying the audiobook for. I've listened to the whole series on audiobook actually, so I will hopefully get back to this sooner rather than later. I finished A Treasury of Classic Fairy Tales, and I think I'm going like 3.25 or 3.5 stars. Like I said in the last vlog, this is literally just classic fairy tales adapted and put in a book form. So I definitely think it is good for the target audience, though I'm less interested in it because there is not a lot of connection to the Land of Stories itself, though there is a tiny bit at the very end, so that was nice. But other than that, there wasn't really much that connected it back with the Land of Stories series. I will say, though, and I think I've showed this off in other videos, that each story has illustrations. And the illustrations are just absolutely gorgeous. It's like that Cinderella. Here is Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So I really did enjoy the illustrations throughout the stories and the art style that they were done in. So I enjoyed that part, and I do think that, like I said, the target audience would probably really enjoy this, and they could be great bedtime stories. And it was interesting to see some of them adapted from different versions, so I was getting a different version of the fairy tale I was used to, but I was hoping for more connection to the Land of Stories series. I've also finished Fly Away. I read this in one sitting. I told myself I was going to read a chapter or two and then just proceeded to spend like the next 4 hours reading this. I'm going, I think, 4.25 stars, and while it wasn't my favorite Kristin Hannah, I still did really enjoy it, and I cried multiple times, which is very common in Kristin Hannah books. I can't really tell you what this is about because it is the sequel to Firefly Lane, and in that one, we're following friends Tully and Kate from childhood to adulthood, and this is a sequel, and I don't really want to say how it continues on from Firefly Lane because that would be massive spoilers. But I thought the way this one was told was quite interesting, and I think I can tell you that without being a spoiler. So basically, we're seeing a certain event that is happening in our characters' lives, and again, I'm not going to tell you who the characters are, and it's like this big moment. And then we're seeing how the characters ended up there compared to where we kind of left them at the end of Firefly Lane. So it is kind of interesting because you'll be slightly in present day and it will somehow reference back to the past, and then we'll get to see what happened in the past that fills in some of the gaps of how these characters ended up where they were at the start of this book and in the present day of this book. So I thought that was quite interesting how we kind of went back and forth and slowly started to piece the story together. And like I said, it packed an emotional punch like any other Kristin Hannah book I've read, because I cried. Like a lot. I'm not sure if I will find a Kristin Hannah book that doesn't make me cry. She does a very good job at bringing emotions to life and writing those emotions in such a way that you can kind of connect with it. So even in True Colors, which is my least favorite Kristin Hannah book, at the end, the way she was writing the emotions I connected with, and it made me cry. The same thing happened in this one. Even if I wasn't connected with the characters, the way she wrote about certain things that were happening and certain things that had gone on and things like that. Again, I'm sorry about being vague, but I don't want to spoil anything. But the way she writes that feels so real to the way life really is. And she does such a great job of describing exactly how one would be feeling if they were in that moment and had those things happening to them. And I think that's where it comes from. She's able to somehow, in every book I've read, connect with me in a way that makes me cry. So absolutely love this. Flew through it. Was not expecting to, because I'd actually heard that this wasn't anywhere near as good as Firefly Lane. And I know that Firefly Lane isn't necessarily everybody's favorite Kristin Hannah, but I'm actually really glad my TBR jar threw this one at me and that I read it, because it was brilliant and reminded me why I love reading Kristin Hannah. Then today I devoured The Curse of the Forgotten City, and this takes place on Emblem Island, and basically everybody there sprouts an emblem that in some way corresponds to something they're going to be good at and have a talent for. And in the first book, all Tor has ever wanted to do is be a water breather. Unfortunately, he has a leadership emblem, which means he's supposed to follow in his mother's footsteps and lead the island someday. And that's not what he wants. So he ends up making a wish to become a water breather instead of a leader. And so he wishes for a different emblem and ends up getting cursed by the Night Witch and has to go and track her down to try to reverse the curse, along with a couple of kids from his village, one of whom he likes and one of whom he doesn't. And this is the sequel to that, obviously, because I'm reading all sequels. So again, sequels are so hard to talk about because I don't want to give anything away. And like in these kinds of books, it would be really easy to give things away. But in this book, we're back with Tor, and he is off on a new adventure where he gets up to all sorts of mischief and chaos, and it is just quite the interesting journey he has in this book. I definitely enjoyed it, and I will continue on with this series whenever the next book comes out. And I love that this is based on Latin American myths that the author's grandmother told her at bedtime when she was a kid. So I love getting kind of exposed to, again, this different culture, this different mythology that I'm not as familiar with, because one of the cool things that both of these books have done is that you be reading along with the story and you get like these pages where you're like reading from a different book, and it is giving you what I'm going to assume are where the myths kind of come in, and some of those would be the myths I would assume that she grew up with as a child. And it's like these little tidbits where they're like reading a book and they're learning about different stories or myths or legends that they weren't sure were real, that they may or may not come into contact with. So I really think that adds to the story, and I quite enjoyed this one as well. And then the only other update I have is that I have continued to work on Lodestar, and I am now on page 414. I am hoping to maybe finish this before bed. I mean, it's 2 a.m., but A, this is a reread. B, I have less than 300 pages left. And C, I can read it ridiculously fast. So we'll see. If not, I will definitely be finishing this tomorrow. I am enjoying my reread still. I think I remember the big thing that happens in this book, but I'm not positive that it's this book that it happens in. If not, I would assume it's the next one. But one of the big things that did happen in this book, I had forgotten about. So again, this reread is proving to be very important to kind of getting everything straight in preparation for book 9. I would also like to note that I believe next month we get the month off, which is interesting considering we have Whatever-a-thon, and Pris is one of the hosts and one of the host faves is Keeper of the Lost Cities. So if you're participating in Whatever-a-thon and you were looking for an excuse to pick up Keeper of the Lost Cities, next month could be a good time to do it because you will get bonus points for host fave. No matter what team you're on, because the fun thing about Whatever-a-thon is you can read any of the host fave and get bonus points for being a host's favorite. So I personally won't be reading any of the Keeper of the Lost Cities books next month because I'm doing Keeper along. And like I said, I think next month is our month off. But either way, I'm enjoying my reread. And I'm going to end this clip here because it is already ridiculously long for two days into the week so far. And I'm going to go finish this because if I don't stop talking to you, I will never finish this book. So I will check back in with you at some point, hopefully before the end of the week, so that it's not just a 2-clip vlog. But you know me, I'm not great at that. We'll see. But in the meantime, I have plenty of sequels to read, and I will check back in with you all when I have something more to say, or at the end of the week, whichever I feel like doing first. So it is Thursday evening, and I thought I would check in since I've actually made some decent progress on my TBR. I just finished Anne of Avonlea. I think I'm going 4 stars in this. This is the second book in the Anne of Green Gables series, and it's just continuing to follow Anne's life. Surprisingly, I find these books to be way more interesting than I would have thought. I find Anne to be extremely charming and likable, and I'm invested in her journey and seeing what happens to her. So this is definitely a series I am going to continue. I don't know when exactly. Maybe next time Classic comes up and I can just use this as my Classic prompt for a while. But this is a series I'm really enjoying. This book starts with her 17 as opposed to her being a child. So we're getting to see what her life is like now that she's basically an adult and is kind of having a little bit more freedom to make choices and live her own life. And some interesting things definitely happen in this book. And like I said, I'm still finding Anne to be extremely charming, and we'll probably read book 3 at some point. I read Amelia Fang and the Lost Yeti Treasure. 5 stars, easy 5 stars. Absolutely love this series. Love following Amelia and the gang and seeing what adventures they get up to. I also love the message that this story has, because while yes, there is the story of the adventure her and her friends go on, which involves a lost Yeti treasure, there's also like a, moral of the day or teachable moment, or however you would want to put it in this book. Something that I think is very important to give kids and that kids can relate to and learn from. And I really need to find out if the little ones in my life enjoyed the first book. I gave 2 of the little ones in my life who turned 8 in March the first book in the Amelia Fang series, and I have been waiting to hand this series off to them. And I'm going to have to find out if they enjoyed it, because if they did, then I will continue to get them books in the series, because it's just such a brilliant series that I hope they love it as much as I did. And I'm so excited that these are the 2 oldest of my group of little ones, which extends from turning 8 in March to a baby that was born last December. So I have tons of different age ranges here, and I'm so excited that they're finally getting to the age where I can start sharing some of my favorite middle grade with them. So hopefully they enjoyed it. I really do need to ask their parents if they did or not, because I don't see them very often. One lives in another state and the other one's schedule is just crazy, so I don't get to see them. But this was another great addition to the series. I'm so bummed that I have to continue to wait for the next book in the series, though I am tempted if the option comes to ask the library to order it, because I really do love this series and it's just such a great series. I highly recommend it, and I am glad that the library had this so I could continue on. Then I finished The City of Illusion, which is the second book in the City of Secrets series, and it's a graphic novel. I don't know if there's going to be a third book, because this book kind of feels like it could have wrapped up the storyline, but who knows? I could see it going either way. Like, I don't know what the story would be if they chose to release a book 3, but I have no doubt that it could totally be done. And then I could totally understand them not doing it too. Like, this felt like a satisfying ending. So I guess we'll have to see. It's basically following two kids, Ever and Hannah. And in the first book, they kind of meet, and Ever is hiding the secret and Hannah is trying to befriend him, but he doesn't really trust people. And in the second book, we're seeing what happens after the events of book 1. Sequels, man, they're really hard to talk about without giving away spoilers, especially in, like, fantasy series. So, although this is more of a steampunky vibe, so I don't know if fantasy is quite the correct term. But either way, I think I'm going 4.25 stars in this. I really enjoyed this continuation to the series. And like I said, I don't know if there's going to be a sequel, but if there is, I would definitely be down to read it. Then I finished The Starlight Slippers, which is the third book in the 100 Dresses series, and I can officially say it is the third book in the series, not the last book in the series. Based on the way this ends, there is absolutely got to be a book 4. The author had to have planned for there to be a book 4 based on the way this book ended, because the story isn't over yet. I will be highly disappointed if I don't get a book 4. In this series, we're following a young girl named Darling who works in the princess's castle, and she ends up stumbling across a closet, well, one of the princess's closets, that has 100 dresses in it. And when she wears them, they transform her into other people, but she can only wear each dress once. And it is a really whimsical and magical series, and I've just really, really enjoyed this. I'm going 4.25 stars on this one as well. This one had a lot going on in it, at least compared to the first two, I think, though it's been a while since I've read the first two. But I still really enjoyed the antics that Darling got up to, seeing who she got to turn into in these books, and how that both helped and hindered her in her quest that she was on during this book. I really do hope we get a fourth book soon, because I really loved, like I said, the magic and the whimsy in this book. And I'm glad to finally know that this is, like, at least in my interpretation, planned to be more than just a trilogy, because I was very curious as to whether I was done with the series or not, but nope, can't check it off yet. There should be a book 4 based on the way this book ended, and if/when that comes out, I will definitely be checking it out. I also started Up to No Good today. This is not a series. Well, it is a series. It's the first book in a series, but it is not a continuation. I am not that far into it, just a couple of chapters. I listened to it while I was in the car. I needed an audiobook, and that is one of the few that I have that's just strictly audio. And I don't really have much to say yet, because I'm only a couple of chapters in, but so far so good. It's a cozy mystery about this woman whose husband died, and she moved back, I want to say, to her hometown, and has opened up a grilled cheese eatery, which was her dream, and a sort of ex ends up evicting her from the building, like serving her with an eviction, and he's going to end up dead. So she's going to have to try to solve that murder. I believe that is the plot of the book. So I'm only 2 chapters in, I think, so don't have much to say, but we'll hopefully listen to more of that, though maybe not until next week, because it wasn't supposed to be on my TBR, and I only listened to it because I left the house. And then the last book I made progress on is the 8th book in the Pendragon series, and I can officially say that, like, there was just where I left off, the end of this chapter, was a humongous reveal. And I wish I could tell you about it, because, man, do I want to talk to somebody about this huge reveal that just happened in book 8. But I don't remember this reveal. So if I've read this book before, I can't believe that this thing didn't stick with me. It's such a huge twist that came out of nowhere, and I had to put the book down. Like, I'm so annoyed that I couldn't just keep reading. So I am definitely enjoying book 8 and seeing what is going on with Bobby and co. and how St. Dain is playing this round of this feud that they're in. And man, am I curious as to where this is going from here, because wow, was I not expecting that one. I also finished Lodestar. I can't remember if I've mentioned this or not, though if I have, you won't be seeing this, so you won't even know that I brought it up. But if not, I did finish it. This is book 5 in the Keeper of the Lost City series. I've been doing a reread, and I am definitely glad I'm doing this reread, because there were some things that went down in this book that I didn't think happened here. Which has basically been the story for my entire reread, is I remember the big plot points, but I don't necessarily remember in what order they happen and in which books they happen and like what they correlate with. So I'm still loving my reread. I will be taking a month off for June, because June is whatever-a-thon, and Pris is taking the month off for her Keeper Along. So I won't be reading it in June, though it is a host fave, which means you get bonus points if you read any of the books in the Keeper of the Lost City series. So if you're taking part in whatever-a-thon and you've been looking for an excuse to read Keeper of the Lost Cities, I would suggest you pick it up in the month of June. Even better if you're on Sunset Scholars, which is my team, because that would help you get points for my team. Well, our team, if you're on my team. And they may be very chunky books, but they are such incredibly quick reads. So I am very happy that I'm doing this reread. I'm a little sad that I won't be able to continue in book 6, because I now kind of remember where we're going and what the event is in book 6, which I thought happened in book 5, and I was wrong. So I'm looking forward to getting to book 6 to reread the event that I know now is in book 6 based on things that happened in book 5. So very excited to read that. Now, there are officially 2 days left of the readathon, and my plans are to finish the 8th Pendragon book. I have no doubt I will do this. I have 8 hours left in the audiobook, and I'm listening to it at 3 times speed, so we're talking a little over 2 hours. I'll be able to smash this out pretty easily. I need to read Warrior Princess, because this was the book I was using for Finish a Series on my bingo card, so this is a top priority. And I don't think this is going to take me more than a couple of hours based on the other books in the series, so unless it just absolutely stinks and does not draw me in, this should be an easy read. I've got Landfall, which is the 3rd book in the Guardian Herd series, and this is a like 6.5 hour audiobook, and as long as I have the physical book, I can listen to it at 4 times speed. So this won't take me long at all either. And then the last book that I am hoping to at least start before the end of the readathon is Aurora Burning, and this is a reread, but these books read quick. They suck me right in it, and they're not exactly hard reads. So I think it is possible that I will manage to read all 3 of these in the next 48 hours and finish this. I don't know exactly what I'm going to read tonight. It is probably going to be one of these 3. Probably this one, if I'm being honest, because my parents are asleep, the house is quieter, and I should be able to read without having to have some sort of background noise. I haven't been editing because I've been trying to read, because I really would love to finish the TBR that I kind of planned for myself for this readathon. And I haven't been filming because it is hot. And we don't have our air conditioners in yet, so my bedroom was like a sauna today. Like, I couldn't even use my computer because I have a busted fan in it, so it overheats really, really easy. Like, I will not film. Like, I can't film when it's on because the fan will just go. Like, I have to shut the mouse off and then put it to sleep so that it doesn't get jostled, or have it completely off. Like, right now it's completely off because my computer is like right here, like right next to the camera. So if it was on, you would be able to hear it. So I had to shut that off before I could film, because otherwise it would just make a ton of noise. But it can't handle being hot. So it's been a bit of a struggle. Like, it is very, very hot, and I actually can't open I can open my bedroom window, but I choose not to because I have all of these lilacs and rose bushes outside of my window. So it is pollen city outside of my bedroom window. And I don't know if you can hear the allergies in my voice, but my allergies are absolutely horrendous. Just awful. So I choose not to open my window because my bed is right next to the window. So last thing I want to do is pull all of that pollen into my room and into my bed. So my room is very, very hot during the day, and I film in my room, so I'm waiting for the temperature to go back down before I can film, because filming these little clips is fine, but like to try to do a sit down video is difficult because I have to shut my door unless you want to be able to hear the TV in the living room. And I don't think you do. I mean, I don't want to hear the TV in the living room, and I have to hear it. It's all right when it's baseball in the background. It's less all right when it's Fox News and I have to listen to things that I would maybe not want to hear, especially from that viewpoint. So I tend to choose to film when I can close the door, and right now it's just way too hot to film with the door shut. But I need to stop filming because this is now a 21-minute clip. You won't see all 21 minutes of it, I'm sure, but it is now a 21-minute clip, and I don't want this video to be 3 hours long. So I'm going to end this here, and I'm going to go read. I'm going to read this. We'll see if I can get through this before I go to bed. Probably not, but maybe a good chunk of it, and I will talk to you again probably, if I'm being honest, early Sunday morning when I wrap this vlog up. So it is now Monday, and that means that this round of the final book support group is finally over, and I am going to do my final check-in. Last time I spoke with you, I had 4 books that I hope to get to. The first was finishing Pendragon Book 8, and I definitely did this. This book had so many twists and turns that I didn't see coming, and so many things happening that I was not expecting. And if I read this before, I completely misplaced all the details. So this was like a brand new, fresh read for me. Whether it was or not, I'm not sure. But it took everything I had not to just pick up book 9 and continue on with the series and find out what was going to be happening with Bobby and Co. in book 9. So I will hopefully be getting to book 9 sooner rather than later because I'm really invested in how this story is going to wrap up in books 9 and 10. I read Warrior Princess, which is the final book in the Maybird trilogy. I think this was easily my least favorite book in the series. I think I'm going like 3.5, 3.75 stars. I was wondering how they were going to continue this series based on the way the second book ended and the threads that they left open, but like I said, the way everything was sitting at the end of that book, I wasn't sure how they were going to be able to tie up those threads, and I wasn't the biggest fan of how they chose to do it and how they accomplished the task that they set out for May in the first book. So I can't see this being a trilogy that I reread, but I'm glad to say that I've read it and I know how May's story ends, and I can check a series off my list. I read Landfall, which is the third book in the Guardian Herd series. We're continuing on our journey with Star, our Black Pegasi, who has this massive legacy hanging over his head, and seeing how he is continuing to handle things in this book. I definitely don't find Star as interesting a protagonist as I did with the protagonist of the Riders of the Realm series, which is a sequel series to this series that I actually read first. So I definitely think some of my enjoyment in this series is lowered by the fact that I read the second series first, so I'm seeing characters I know from that series. in this book, and I know their fates, which makes me less invested in their story because I know they're going to be all right. And I know certain things that happen, so I'm kind of waiting for those things to pop up in this series. I only have one book to go. I believe it's only 4 books, so I'm almost close to the end. I definitely think Riders of the Realm is the more interesting series, and I'm definitely going to stick with this and see how this story wraps up, but like I said, I'm just not as invested in it as I was with Riders of the Realm. And then the last book I had hoped to get to was Aurora Burning, and I did start this. I'm on page 120, so I made some decent progress in this, but I did not finish it. Part of that is because we had a bit of a heat wave, and I was trying to avoid putting my air conditioner in, so I spent most of Saturday not physically reading. I managed to finish Pilgrims of Rain, and I actually finished the book Up to No Good, which is the first book in the Grilled Cheese Mystery series, because I had the audiobook for that, and it was on my TBR for this month, and it was just too hot to want extra lights on and to try to physically read when I had a fan on that was just blowing the pages around. I also got it into my head that Saturday was the last day of the readathon, not Sunday. So I didn't end up picking up Aurora Burning Sunday morning when I could have read it. So I ended up getting all mixed up and confused, and I probably could have finished it, but I ended up focusing on other books because I thought the readathon was over. I also spent most of my Saturday thinking it was Monday, so the fact that I didn't just end my vlog there is surprising given hindsight, because I really truly did think it was Monday for most of Saturday. Because I thought that the readathon ended on Saturday, Sunday, I started the Mona Lisa Key, and I got to page 130. I'm not going to say anything more about this because it's one of my 5-star predictions, so you'll have to watch my 5-star prediction wrap-up vlog for my thoughts on this, but I did start this and make decent progress. And I've started Storm, which is the first book in the Elemental series by Bridget Kemmerer. I've read this before. It's a reread, and I'm trying to determine whether I want to continue with the series, because when I first read it, it was back when I got into reading again for the first time, and having lighter fantasies was definitely more in my wheelhouse. And even in the few years since I've started reading again, my reading tastes have changed and evolved. So I don't know that I'm going to enjoy this series as much as I did the first time. I only read the first 2 books because I didn't have access to any of the other books in the series. We have a helper. It's an Ellie. So I just... Come here. Come on. There you go. Okay. So I don't know if I'm going to enjoy my reread of the series, but I pulled it out of my TBR jar, and I knew I was going to have to start it over if I wanted to continue it. So we'll see if I end up enjoying this. So I filled out my bingo board. Like, I managed to complete all of the prompts that I needed to do. I definitely hit my 200 pages per day goal and almost smashed my ideal total, because I think I got through all of the books that were on my tentative TBR, like books I could pull from, except for Aurora Burning. And I actually read one that wasn't, but thought it was. So I think I had a pretty good reading week. For self-care, instead of physically reading, I ended up doing a puzzle. I'll pop a picture of it up here. And really enjoyed doing that. And I also took time to draw. I don't do it very often. It was something I did to help with my mental health when I was a teenager. And my drawings were not as light and bright in areas as this. They were very dark because I was depressed. So it isn't something I do very often, but I've been feeling rather creative lately, so I gave this a shot. Especially considering it was hot out and I was listening to an audiobook. I've got a piece of paper here with all of the books I got to... How? With all of the books I got to in this round of the Final Book Support Group. So I read Island of Glass, which finished a series and was my series vet for my bingo board. I read The Case of the Bizarre Bouquet, which was book 3 in the Enola Holmes series. I read A Case of Cat and Mouse, which was the 12th book in the Magical Cats mystery series. I read What the Hex, which fulfilled the comic, manga, or graphic novel prompt for my bingo board and caught me up on the Witches of Brooklyn series. I read The Map Makers, which was the book I used for Treat Yourself because I treated myself to a highly anticipated new release. And that brings me current in that series. I read Wildwood Imperium, which means I can check that series off my list. I read Flyaway, which was the second book in the Firefly Lane duology, so I can check that series off my list. I read A Treasury of Classic Fairy Tales, which was my book for companion on the bingo board, which means I've now read all of the books in Chris Colfer's Land of Stories series or universe. I read Curse of the Forgotten City by Alex Astor, and this is the book that I did not have on my TBR, but ended up reading anyways. And that book brings me current on the Emblem Island series. I read Lodestar, which is the 5th book in the Keeper of the Lost City series, which I'm doing as part of a reread. I read City of Illusion, which is the 2nd book in the City of Secrets series, which gets me current on that series. I read Amelia Fang and the Lost Yeti Treasure, which is book 5 in that series, and counted for Steph's fave for my bingo board. I read The Starlight Slippers, which is the 3rd and most current book in the 100 Dresses series. I read Anne of Avonlea, which is the 2nd book in the Anne of Green Gables series. I read Landfall, which is the 3rd book in the Guardian Herd series. I read Warrior Princess, which is the final book in the Maybird trilogy, which I'm using for the final book prompt. I read The Pilgrims of Rain, which is the 8th book in the Pendragon series. And I read Up to No Gouda, which is actually the start of a new series. So during this round, I managed to complete 4 different series. I managed to get caught up in 7 different series. I made progress in 6 series, and I started 1. I would say that is a very successful round of the Final Book Support Group, especially when you factor in that I also made progress in the Mona Lisa Key, the 1619 Project, Storm, and Aurora Burning. So I am very happy with everything I've read for this round. I had so much fun participating because it really helped me hone in on these sequels on my TBR, and when I was constructing my TBR, make me want to put more sequels on my TBR. So definitely a fantastic read-along, readathon, book club, whatever you want to call it. And I can't wait for the next round to see how long it's going to be and how it's structured and what books I decide to choose for that. So that's it for this vlog. All of my social media, including my Discord, is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me emojis you associate with a black cat, since Ellie has decided she's going to be part of this video. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!